One day, while exploring the post-apocalyptic Midwest of what at one time was the United States of America, we stumble upon an encounter that our outdoorsman skill can't skip. We arrive on the northern side of a long dirt road. If we pop one of our characters into stealth and creep down the road, we overhear a bunch of tribals at a campsite having a conversation. I heard that Canada started the Great War. An attack could start at any minute. Let's get 'em! Why don't you go back to Canada? I always wanted to be a lumberjack. You think you're so good. But if they spot us, they start to attack. So we can instead bring the squad down to defend ourselves. And they shout, "We don't speak with your kind, Canadian scum. We invaded your country once, and we'll do it again." But they don't last long. These tribals are armed with pretty low-level weaponry, just a bunch of small guns. But it's here where we find one unique weapon we can't find anywhere else. On the body of one of these tribals is the water gun, and along with it, 70 canisters of acid. A modified water gun. The brightly colored casing of this seemingly harmless weapon belies the fact that it has been shielded with a ceramic coating, making it perfect for carrying acid loads. It has a minimum strength requirement of 5 and can only use vials of HCl acid, which I presume stands for hydrochloric acid, and it weighs 7 pounds. The water gun does between 5 and 25 damage. It has a range of 24 and an ammo capacity of 10. It uses the small gun skill to calculate damage, and it has an AP cost of 6. We talked a little bit about the water gun in my video on Newton, and we experimented with it there. Because the canisters of acid have a plus 31% bonus to armor penetration, they could potentially be useful against high-armored targets like robots. However, in my testing, the water gun performed poorly compared to other weapons we likely already have at this point, including the plasma pistol or even the laser pistol. Additionally, the water gun, in my experience, was slightly glitched in that it didn't have any sound effects. But of course, perhaps we could explain this by the fact that it squirts acid, which probably doesn't make a lot of noise. It is, after all, a squirt gun. Well, we walk away from this campsite a little bit befuddled. These tribals were defending America from a Canadian invasion well over 120 years after America had already fallen, and long after America had already annexed Canada. But it doesn't have to make a lick of sense. This is, after all, a special encounter. Like Fallouts 1 and 2, in Fallout Tactics, we have the potential to stumble upon a random encounter whenever we explore the world map. When I played the game, however, I found that random encounters trigger far more frequently in Fallout Tactics than they do in Fallouts 1 and 2. Some people I have read online have even said that this is a bit of a bug. They shouldn't be triggering quite as often as they do. But special encounters are something entirely different. Like Fallouts 1 and 2, Fallout Tactics has a number of scripted special encounters. We can only find these special encounters once on the map, though we oftentimes can revisit them after we trigger the encounter. In Fallout Tactics, these special encounters like to spawn at specific special encounter spawn points across the map. There are a whopping 30 special encounters that we can find in Fallout Tactics. That's more special encounters than Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 had combined. And they're all just as interesting. In this video, we'll go through them all one by one. Now, while the Fallout Tactics special encounters spawn points are fixed on the map, the special encounter that can spawn at that spawn point is random. There are a number of maps we can find online that has all of these spawn points listed, but in my testing, the special encounters listed at those spawn points was almost always incorrect. I often found a completely different one. So for this video, we'll go through all of the special encounters in the order that I found them. This one was called the Canadian Invasion. Next, we stumble upon what at first appears to be an empty stretch of desert. But soon our perception picks up noises around every corner. It appears to be the sound of a narrator saying, "The Evereddy Bunny." It keeps going and going and going and going. No matter where we go, we keep hearing it and going and going, but we don't see anything. This map, however, is not empty. If we just attack in any random direction, we destroy these invisible Evereddy Bunnies. The rest of them turn hostile and our squad can target them. It's an Evereddy Bunny massacre. Silence, sweet silence. But it comes at a cost. Killing each of these Evereddy Bunnies reduces our karma. I started with the karma level Guardian of the Wastes, but after killing the Evereddy Bunnies, I am now Demon Spawn. The Evereddy Bunnies are, of course, a reference to the Energizer Bunnies. I believe we're all familiar with the famous commercials for the Energizer brand of batteries.
When only the best will.
Like we said, nothing outlasts the Energizer. They keep going and going and going and...
Interestingly, this is one of the few special encounters that doesn't leave a named circle on the map. While the other special encounters are labeled, this one isn't. Next, we stumble upon a small campsite with 4 people who look like raiders standing around the campfire. But things become a bit surreal when we listen to their conversation. These are the 4 horsemen of the post-apocalypse: war, pestilence, death, and famine. The horseman in yellow is the horseman of famine. How do these people eat? God, I'm so bored. Who got the chips? Wake me up when there's something to do. The horseman in red is the horseman of war. Maybe we should switch sides. I liked it better before the war. Man, you know it's bad if the horseman of war is disturbed by the post-apocalypse. Enough with all the fighting already. Maybe we should give peace a chance. War never changes. Screw you. You don't know me. The horseman in green is the horseman of pestilence. I think I'm out of a job. I'm going back to bed. These people live to suffer. I don't get it. Oh, great. I can't believe I have another cold. The horseman in black is the horseman of death. This place doesn't need us. Stupid bastards. No respect for life. 7.54 billion people died just like that. Where the heck is everybody? Oh. The 4 horsemen of the post-apocalypse are, of course, a reference to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse from John's Revelation in the Christian Bible. The 4 horsemen were supposed to exact judgment upon earth as part of humanity's last judgment during the end times. Looks like according to this special encounter, they arrived to find that we judged ourselves. There was no work left for them to do. Then one day, we stumble upon a seemingly inconspicuous stretch of dirt road. But then, a guy on a bicycle rides by. Getting close, we see that his name is Phil, the Nuka-Cola dude. Why I have to drag it around the desert? They like it so much, why don't they deliver it? 73 more stops to go. Damn it. Stupid frickin' Nuka-Cola. We can't talk with him, but we can steal from him. On his inventory is 20 Molotov cocktails, 100 bottles of Nuka-Cola, and a unique item, a fusion cola. We can try to steal it, or we can kill him. This bottle contains the concentrated essence of countless Nuka-Cola dregs, combined with a form of fusion. It weighs 1 pound. This is the one and only bottle of fusion Nuka-Cola in the game, so therefore I suppose it's best saved for the final encounter of the game. If we drink it, however, our stats change, and we become addicted. We gain +2 to strength, +3 to perception, +5 to endurance, and +1 to agility, at the cost of 1 to charisma and 2 to intelligence. And I didn't just get unlucky by drinking it. No, this bottle grants us instant addiction. Well, now we know why all of those Nuka-Cola machines still have Nuka-Cola in them after all these years. They're stocked up by Phil here. I wonder who pays him. Next up, we arrive at a stage in the middle of the desert, surrounded by campfires and sleeping bags. On the stage are a bunch of Reavers, and they're walking, I guess. But they don't seem to be going anywhere. They're walking in place, and we don't understand what's going on until we read the sign just in front of the stage. Reaver Dance. Oh, God. Leave it to Fallout Tactics to give us a 90s dad joke. This is, of course, a reference to Reaver Dance, the Irish dancing sensation that took place in the late 90s. Looks like Michael Flatley's legacy lives on in the post-apocalypse, though only through the Reavers. The dancers don't say anything, and we can't interact with them. We can't even kill them. Then one day we stumble upon a fenced-off pasture. Moving inside, we see a Brahmin, but then what are those around the Brahmin? Are they stealthed Brahmin? But then the one Brahmin that we can clearly see begins to speak. I see dead Brahmin all the time. Mousing over the Brahmin, we begin to understand. This is Cole the Brahmin, making this special encounter a reference to the movie The Sixth Sense. Remember the little boy in that movie, whose name was Cole, could see the dead, famously uttering the phrase, I see dead people. And it looks like these Brahmin really are ghosts. We can't kill them. But the real Brahmin... Oh yeah, we can't kill him. We don't appear to lose karma by doing so. I'm still guardian of the wastes here. Well, we'll leave the ghosts alone for now. Next up, we find 2 wounded super mutants in an ancient ruin. These appear to be brothers, Jim and Joe Grimm. Joe is unhurt, but Jim is severely wounded. As we approach, Joe says, "You take it easy. You're hurt." And Jim says,
"Me no feel my leg."
Hey, you! Yeah, you! Look, my brother Jim stepped on a mine and wrecked his foot. I know humans and super mutants are supposed to kill each other on sight, but I think it's time to leave the past in the past. Nah, I don't want us to group hug and sing Kumbaya and stuff, but maybe one of you guys can hook a mutant up, huh? What do you say? Can you help my brother?
Oh, well, I suppose we can let bygones be bygones. After all, we've already got Cookie here. Dropping a first aid kit into our active item slot, we can use it on Jim Grimm. You rest, brother, says Joe. And with that, we fully heal Jim. Jim gets up a little bit, and then we can talk again with Joe.
Hey, thanks, pal. Maybe the master was wrong. Maybe you normal humans ain't all scum-sucking flesh bags, and maybe it's me, but the old Brotherhood would have shot first and asked questions later. We just might have to check out this new Brotherhood for ourselves. See you around. Let's go, Gimpy.
Joe and Gimpy here exit stage left. Don't tread on any more mines, says Joe.
Jim smash mine.
Says Jim. Joe and Jim Grimm here are apparently references to the Brothers Grimm, the famous German academics who collected and published German and European folk tales that are so familiar to us today. Their connection to the super mutants here appear to be in name only. But the story doesn't end here. Back at any bunker, if we check the recruits pool, we find the Brothers Grimm. First, we can learn more about Jim. Jim has a brother, Joe. Together, they are the Brothers Grimm. Jim likes to dress in women's clothes, which really pisses his brother off. Jim is the heavy weapons expert and the brains of the outfit. Does he also hang around in bars, just like his old papa? Jim here has big guns, energy weapons, and throwing tagged. His big gun skill is a respectable 190. Wow, that's better than I ever got cookies during my gameplay. But his other two tagged skills are really low when we get them. His stats are all right. He's got 10 in strength, which is what we need for a big guns guy, 7 endurance, and 6 agility. His luck is pretty low, though, at a measly 4, and he has quite a few traits and perks. Fast shot, which is excellent for a big guns guy, but then also the debilitating Vat Skin. Vat Skin, remember, was that super mutant only trait that reduces the perception of everyone around him. So if our party moves in formation, they suffer a perception penalty. He also has bonus rate of fire, hit the deck, steady arm, and tough hide. All really good perks for what he does. Then there's Joe Grimm. Joe has a brother, Jim. Together, they are the Brothers Grimm, so-called because things can get pretty grim when they're around. Joe likes to bash things and act all masculine. He's the brawn of the outfit. Guess he has to act masculine to make up for his cross-dressing brother. Joe here has big guns, unarmed, and throwing tagged. However, unlike his brother, his big gun skill is not high at all. Instead, his unarmed skill is an amazing 200%. He has 13 strength. Wow. But lower endurance, lower luck, yet a respectable agility of 7. Like his brother, he has quite a few perks and traits tagged. He has fast shot and Vat Skin again, which is a bummer, but then also bonus hand-to-hand attacks, bonus hand-to-hand damage, hand-to-hand evade, and tough hide. So Joe here is really built to be an unarmed character. Well, since I'm doing special encounters right now, having already completed the game, I'm going to go ahead and put any new characters we run into our party. This is really our only opportunity to enjoy them. So swapping out Cookie and Harold for Joe and Jim, we can hop back in the Hummer and move to the world map to find more encounters. Next up, we discover a large building with a bunker door. Heading inside, we find a bunch of people running on treadmills. They pant and wheeze. Whew! Huff! Puff! These guys on treadmills are apparently being watched over by one of the Calculator's robots. Or a robot that looks like one of the Calculator's robots. Faster, human! It says. It moves to the southern end of the room and begins to shout at them. I can take over the world! Excellent! I only need 3 million more humans. Kill me, the humans say. Oh, looks like they're being forced to exercise here. Well, we can kill this robot. If we do, on his body, we just find 7.62 millimeter ammunition, and the joggers don't leave. Well, they did ask us to kill him. We can comply. But if we kill these guys, we lose karma. I went from Guardian of the Wastes all the way down to Sword of Despair. Near to the treadmills are a bunch of locked lockers. We have to pick these to gain access to them, but if we do, inside, we find small energy cells. A lot of them. A stack of 200 in each locker. Then heading back out to the world map, we see that the name of this encounter was Coppertops. And now we get an idea of what this is a reference to. Coppertops, of course, is a reference to Duracell batteries, which have a copper top.
You can't top the Coppertop.
The robot used the manual labor of the humans on the cycles to produce electricity, which apparently it then stored as small energy cells in the lockers. The robot inside wanted to take over the world by using each of these humans as a battery. This therefore must be a reference to the movie The Matrix, where human beings were used as batteries to energize a robotic empire. Next, we stumble upon a sprawling ruin, but it appears that Wastelanders have set up a bit of a marketplace here. However, they speak in a strange language we can't possibly identify. Trading an SMR for an FBSS? Need SOW. Want to buy GBS, LOW, SSOM, SMR, SCS, and other fat loot. Train to zone, move it or lose it. Selling bibs, 200 pp. BBC, 50 pp. Serp bracer, 2 pp. Looking for port to Gaffey. Give me a tell. I wanna play, damn it. Has anyone seen my corpse? Can I get a sew, please? Need sew for corpse retrieval. Selling GLS, 5 pp each. Buying words of possession and spoken. Well, it looks like these guys have been playing a lot of online games. EverQuest, to be specific. Now, I played EverQuest a little bit many years ago, so I recognize a bit of the lingo. SOW, for example, stands for Spirit of Wolf. It was a spell other players could cast on you that increased your movement speed by 30%. This guy wanted Spirit of the Wolf cast upon him so that he could move more quickly to go and retrieve his corpse. But that was really the only connection I could make. I didn't understand much of the rest of it. We can barter with each of these guys. Most of them have rather unimpressive inventories, early to mid-game stuff, though we do find some rare needler cartridge ammunition on one guy, Nuka Cola and ring pulls on another guy, some poison antidote and fairly rare ghoul armor on another. This guy just has ring pulls, ammunition, and healing powder, but this guy has the Devilthorn jacket, a one-of-a-kind, completely unique item. However, he's asking for a ridiculous 21,777 ring pulls for the armor. Come on. That's right up there with power armor. I wonder if it's worth it. I didn't have a character with high enough steel to steal it, but we can kill them all. And if we do, they shout, "No fair! I wasn't ready!" Well, that's apparent. Killing these guys does cause us to lose karma. I went from Guardian of the Wastes down to Shield of Hope. But examining the armor, Devilthorn jacket, unique item, 100 to armor class, plus 10 to strength, plus 50% resist fire, -6 damage from enemies, indestructible. Minimum strength requirement, 75, and it weighs 20 pounds. After all of that, it's a joke item. The minimum strength requirement of 75 means we can't ever use this on any character. And this piece of armor appears to be a reference to the Demon Spike coat, which is a unique suit of armor from Diablo 1. The unique styling of the description here mimics the styling of the hover-over descriptions from items in Diablo 2. And the stats on this armor are similar to the stats on the Demon Spike coat from Diablo 1. The only difference is that the Demon Spike coat requires 90 strength to wear instead of 75. Exploring the rest of this ruin, we don't find much else. There is a back room where apparently these guys were playing poker, but we can't interact with the poker tables or any of the bookshelves. This special encounter was called Bazaar Day. Next, we arrive outside a tent in the middle of the desert. We find a raider sleeping on the ground near to where our Hummer arrives. And moving towards the tent, we see that these are all raiders, but they're not hostile. We can talk with one raider. He even has a portrait, but his dialogue is not voiced. So, what do you need? We can barter with him. He has an assortment of goods, some of which we might find interesting. He has a Zen and the Art of Piloting book. He sells a Gauss pistol, which may be useful if we stumble upon this special encounter early in our gameplay. He has 2 big books of science, 1 copy of Maddox's Tricks and Traps, a number of really useful guns that are useful even late in the game, like the FNFAL and the HNK Cause. But then he also has a really rare weapon that we can only find here and in one other place, on the corpse of Emperor Dar from Marden. The Dynamite Spear. Spear with a stick of dynamite bound to the end. Minimum strength requirement of 4. It weighs 16 pounds. This is a melee item. It does between 20 and 40 damage with a range of 2. I think the Dynamite Spear at one point was supposed to have a greater role in the game. The concept art for the item is interesting. Apparently, thrown spears were supposed to be part of the game, as the concept art says that this item should only be thrown, as stabbing someone with it would be suicidal. And yet, in the game, we can't throw it. In fact, we can only stab someone with it, and we can take it for a test run on these raiders. Killing these guys is actually really lucrative. Not only do we have access to everything that was on this raider's inventory, but his raider companions have Pankar jackhammers and FNFALs. Each of these guys has at least 1 Pankar jackhammer, with the exception of the guy who was sleeping. He has a kettle prod. But even though these guys are raiders, killing them does cost us karma, perhaps because they weren't hostile. I went all the way from Guardian of the Wastes to Warrior. This special encounter was simply called Merchant, and I seem to get all of the Merchant special encounters all at once. For next, we arrive in a small ruin. We have the Hummer with us, and here we find more raiders guarding a raider trader. He also has a portrait. Hello, are you looking for something? And we can barter with him. This guy, like the last guy, has an interesting assortment. Not only does he sell environmental armor, but he sells the very rare Flamer pistol. We only found 1 other in the game. The very rare Needler pistol, which again, we only found 1 other in the game. He sells rare chems like Muti and rare small guns like the FN P90C. Strangely, we find a couple of stealthed civilians here, and I'm not exactly sure why. There are boxes and crates around these guys. We can't loot any of them, but can we kill them? You know it! The civilians aren't carrying anything interesting. We get 1 Neostat combat shotgun from 1. Really, the benefit to killing them is we get access to this guy's trader inventory. And only by killing him do we get a power fist. After he's dead, 1 appears on his inventory. But like with the last encounter, we do lose karma for killing them. I went all the way down to Defender. This encounter was simply called Trader. Next, we arrive in the middle of a street at the western edge of the map. We can follow this sidewalk north, whereupon we find a pathway to the west. Here we find the ruins of a temple, or perhaps a university. And then walking around in a nearby playground, we see What? Is that the Vault Boy? Gee willikers, he says. Gosh, I sure would like some friends. Now, this guy is really weird, and I found him to be pretty glitched. First of all, he's called Pipboy here instead of Vault Boy, which is wrong. The Pipboy, of course, is the name of the device that we're using to interact with our inventory. And even in Fallout 1, the Pipboy, as a mascot, was a very different character. He had orange hair. This guy with the blonde hair is the Vault Boy. If we talk to him, he says, "Golly, but you folks sure look swell. Mind if I tag along for a while? No? Great. I've been itching for a fight." But then he walks off the map. "The first time you kill is the hardest," he says. And then he disappears. You'd think he would have joined my party. I actually discovered him with one slot open in my party, but apparently not. I read up on this guy, and everyone told me that I'd find him in the recruits pool. So going to a nearby bunker, we can go to the recruits master, and yet I didn't find him available to recruit in the recruits pool. And that's because some of the sources I read said that because he's glitched, he sometimes won't join your party or even appear in the recruits pool if you have more than 2 people in your party. Now, some guides I read said that you can still recruit him if you have less than 5. Well, I didn't know which one was true, so to test this out, putting everyone back in the recruits pool except for Alice and Oxhorn, I went back to the special encounter and we found him still walking around here. This time when I talked with him, he joined the party. We see that he's at half-life, he's carrying an FNFAL, and strangely enough, he has no description. He has 4 tagged skills though: small guns, big guns, energy weapons, and sneak. Only small guns is above 100. His special stats are okay. Above average strength, above average agility. Everything else is good except for luck, which is heroic. 10 luck. Pretty nice. But he's only got 4 traits and perks. He's got the bloody mess trait. Nice. Then he's got tag, stuntman, and flexible. Alright, so this is an early to mid-game companion that we really need to spend some time to work on. Oddly enough, when I found him, I couldn't change his aggression or his stance. He's stuck at passive. Then, when I put him in the Hummer to leave, we couldn't leave the exit grid. I drove all over the southern exit grid, then went to the northern exit grid, and we couldn't leave. I tried in the Hummer and out of the Hummer, and it just wouldn't work. This may be a glitch unrelated to the Pipboy special encounter. I read online that sometimes you can enter an area and then you can't leave it. And the only way to get around it is to load a save you made before you entered that area. Which is what I ultimately had to do. Doing this whole thing over again, I dumped all of my party, this time, into the recruits pool. I wanted to reduce as many variables that could lead to a glitch as possible. Then, hopping in the Hummer, I went back to where I knew the special encounter was. And sure enough, we find him walking around. And he joins our party. However, this time, his aggression can change. I was able to set him aggressive, though we still can't change his stance. And that's a known bug with the Pipboy here. You actually need to install a mod that fixes him in order to get him to change his stance. But I was successful at getting him in the Hummer and leaving the Pipboy special encounter. Then back at our closest bunker, we can form our party again. Oddly enough, by moving from the special encounter to the bunker, the Pipboy's name in the character tabs at the bottom changed to core_Pipboy. Again, just another weird glitch associated with this squad mate. But at least we got him, and he's mostly functional. We can head back to the Hummer and find our next special encounter. Eventually, we arrive at a gas station in the middle of the night. Inside the gas station, we find an elderly woman. "Best not dwell on things," she says. "Put on a happy face. I wonder when Henry will be home. Things sure are quiet these days. Now where did I put my teeth?" This is Grandma, and she's selling, among some other beverages, the Elixir of Life. She is asking 6,000 ring pulls for it. We could pickpocket it, or We could kill her. I never wanted to die like this, she says. This bottle contains a heavy, viscous liquid. The way it reflects light is mesmerizing. It weighs 5 pounds. If we drink it, we gain +1 to endurance and +15 to our hit points. And these aren't a temporary bonus. It's permanent. We also find one toolkit on the bookshelf in here. And that's about it. We were to have a short conversation with her upon meeting her for the first time, but that appears to have been cut from the game for unknown reasons. Her in-game script describes her as being slightly out of touch with reality, an extremely old woman, possibly pre-war, who doesn't realize that there even was a war, still waiting for a new shipment of gasoline, 120 years after the apocalypse. The map marker calls this one simply gas station. Next, we find a small farm. The farmer stands by a fire. He has 2 Brahmin. Yes? What can I do for you? Says the farmer. And, this farmer suspiciously looks a lot like Chris Avalon. In fact, it's the exact same character portrait as the mayor of Springfield, but with a beard crudely painted on and some long hair. We can barter with him. He has a number of skill books we should grab, a Guns and Bullets magazine, a Scout magazine, a Cat's Paw for the collector, and, strangely enough, 1 round of 50 caliber depleted uranium ammunition. It's a very rare and powerful type of ammunition, but only 1 round of it? Okay then. If we don't want to buy it, we can kill him. As he dies, he strangely says, I feel so empowered. There were way more Brahmin here than I initially thought, but they don't have anything on their inventories. And after dying, he simply drops a punch knife into his inventory. But like with most of these merchants we found, if we murder them, we do lose karma. I drop down to Shield of Hope. This one was labeled simply Farmer on the map. Next, we stumble upon a group of people that appear to be getting ready for a picnic. At least, that's what it looks like with all these tables here, until we see a nearby sign. It reads, Canadian Invasion Recreationists. And then almost immediately, a woman calls out, All right, ladies and gents, the invasion is about to start. If we can all get to the American side of the line, that's lovely. The people dutifully walk north. And then we see it. A line drawn in the sand. I suppose this is supposed to represent the border between the United States and Canada. The leader steps to the line to begin the invasion. Now, if you'll all just step over the Canadian side of the line. Excellent. Well done, everyone. Well done. Right. Who's for a drink then? And with that, the invaders head to the picnic table. I can't wait until we do this again next year. I nearly peed my pants. Oh, wait a minute. I did. Good job, good job. Well done, everyone. That was close. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Well, 120 years after the apocalypse, apparently, this is how an invasion of Canada by America is remembered. Now, we could pickpocket each of these individuals, but that's a lot of people, and I really didn't want to bother. So instead, we could answer the age-old question, can we kill them? Yes, we can! As expected, these revelers, or recreationists, are carrying a bunch of booze. One of them is even carrying Psycho. Can't say I'm surprised. We can cross the border ourselves, but there's nothing over here, and the rest of the map is empty. But as always, checking our karma, we have indeed lost a bunch. Well, we'll leave these fine folks to their harmless pastime. This one was called the Invasion Recreationists. Next, we stumble upon a huge hole in the ground. and creeping closer, to the right of this hole, we find a number of pillars erected. They appear to be created by some of the local tribals. What meaning does this circle have? Standing in the middle, we don't learn anything else, but we see that this ring of standing stones has been erected near to a giant crater, and in the middle of the crater is a wrecked space station. This is the ruins of Mir. Mir was a real-world space station. It was the world's first long-term inhabited research space station in orbit around the planet. It was launched by the Soviet Union and was assembled in orbit between 1986 and 1996. Due to costs involved in maintaining the space station, Russia, which took over after the collapse of the Soviet Union, decided to deorbit the space station, which took place in March of 2001. It re-entered the Earth's atmosphere near Fiji, and most of it burnt up, with a few smaller bits of it falling into the South Pacific Ocean. But it looks like in the Fallout universe, it stayed in orbit for much longer, finally crashing to Earth here, whereupon the local tribals, confused and amazed by its sudden appearance, erected a monument to it, possibly worshipping it. Next, we find a lone campfire by an outcropping of rocks. We see wolves assembled nearby, and near to the wolves is a hermit. "Hello, are you looking for something?" he says. We can barter with him, and like many of the other merchants, his inventory isn't that bad. He sells 5 vials of poison, just like the poison we found on the robot in Scott City. The poison that ultimately had an important role in the plot of the game. This is the only other place to find it, but there's really no other use for it than the way we used it at Scott City. He sells the 9mm Calico M950. There is only one other in the game. It's actually held by a guard in Junction City, and since we didn't kill any of the guards there, we didn't find it. It's similar to the Calico Liberty 100, which we bought from a shopkeeper at Coldwater. However, it doesn't have a burst mode, and its single mode damage is inferior. But it uses 9mm ammunition, which is easy to find. It does between 17 and 14 damage in single fire mode. It has a range of 24 and an AP cost of 4. But it also has a triple fire mode, which presumably does the exact same damage, costs only 1 more AP, but has a significantly reduced range of 17. Both modes have an ammo capacity of 50, which is absolutely huge. It's an interesting weapon, but I think it's really more of a curiosity than anything else. The Hermit here also sells a scout manual we should go ahead and grab, and when done, we can head back to the world map. This one is simply labeled Hermit. Next, we arrive in the ruins of a city street. In the middle of this intersection, we find 2 different groups of tribals. They ran at the sight of my Hummer, which broke their formation, so coming back without the car, we can try to figure out what's going on here. "Splitters!" they shout at each other. Both sides shouting the same thing. "Splitters! Splitters!" And they stick out their tongues and shout, "Nonconformists!" There are 2 signs here. One reads, "The People's Front of Canada," and the other reads, "The Canadian People's Front." This entire encounter is a reference to The Life of Brian by Monty Python.
Are you the Judean People's Front? Judean People's Front? Well, the People's Front of Judea.
The special encounters of this game are really picking on Canada pretty hard. Now, of course, we could kill him. But we lose a boatload of karma. I went all the way down to Defender. Interestingly, I didn't lose quite as much karma as I did when I killed the invisible bunnies. Many of the tribals here drop wasp stings. This is a very rare melee weapon. We only found one other at Quincy. However, the weapon is broken and it can't be used. Because it's a stinger, the swing mode of the weapon was removed, leaving only the pierce mode. But the pierce mode is set to be the second damage mode of the weapon, leaving the first damage mode blank. And without a first damage mode, the game assumes that it doesn't have any damage mode. We can't switch to Pierce mode, and therefore the weapon is unusable. At any rate, we'll leave these guys alive for now, and move back to the world map. This one is called CPF, Canadian People's Front, versus PFC, the People's Front of Canada. Eventually, we stumble upon a Brotherhood of Steel bunker. What? Why didn't we know about this place? We find human corpses lying on the ground. The first time I arrived, blood didn't spawn correctly, but another time I arrived, it did. The perpetrators of this carnage are apparently standing just outside this Brotherhood bunker. They're Brotherhood soldiers, wearing Brotherhood power armor. Hey, they started it, says one. Screw 'em, civilian pukes. They stepped out of line. Damn straight. We checked. They weren't carrying anything good. And he's right, I checked. They really weren't. Though one body did have some afterburner gum. They might have been armed for all we know. Nothing to see here. Last time they complained, right? We took care of it. We had a little civil unrest. Heading to the front door, we can't open it. It's locked, but we can't pick it. And it's not just my character's lockpicking skill. There is no amount of lockpicking skill that can open this door. It's unpickable, and there's no switch or lever that opens it. Heading around back, we see this entire area is fenced off. We find a couple of empty barrels out here. Our perception picks up a staircase and a map on the inside of this building, but we can't access it. We'll never find out what's down those stairs. There's a lot about this that's just disturbing. Where did these civilians come from? Why were they here outside a Brotherhood bunker? What bunker is this, and why haven't we heard about it until just now? We'll never get any answers to these questions. I think it's just here to tell us a bit more about the character of this Midwestern chapter of the Brotherhood. Now, we could kill them. Their names were Hubert and McCarthy. Each of them are carrying Vindicator miniguns. And, I suppose unsurprisingly, if we kill them, we do lose karma, even though they massacred a bunch of civilians. We dropped all the way down to Shield of Hope. But we'll leave them for now and move on. This map marker was called Uprising. Next we find a corpse lying in the mud. Near to it is a life ring. Looting the civilian, we don't find anything on his corpse. And next to the life ring is a sketch. Accessing the sketch in our inventory, a sketch of a stick figure with crudely drawn breasts. Oh, Jack, draw me like one of your French girls. Now, it can be easy to miss, but if we closely examine the ground around the body of Jack here, we find a gem. Looting it and examining the description, a bloody enormous gemstone. For anyone familiar with the film Titanic, the icon here looks a lot like the heart of the ocean, which featured prominently in the plot.
It was worn by Louis XVI, and they called it Le Coeur de la Mer. The heart of the ocean, yes.
The only thing this gem is useful for is resale. Now, I read that you can get upwards of $20,000 for this thing, but when I went to the Brotherhood Quartermaster, he only offered me just over $3,000. And I think this was due to my character's barter skill at the time. The Pipboy here only had a barter skill of 20%. But if we can get the full value from this thing, that's like a free suit of power armor. 20,000. Nice. Of course, this one on the world map is aptly named Titanic. Next, we find a fenced-off farm. There is a sign outside, but when I hovered over it, I didn't see anything. In the middle of the farm, we find a bunch of Brahmin, but unlike many of the other Brahmin in the game, we can interact with them. And when we do... Oh! We knock it over! Well, let's do this again. Hey, we're going Brahmin Tipping. Let's do the entire herd. Oh, that's just lovely. There is a well here, but nothing of interest near it. And that appears to be the end of the encounter. We can come back and tip these Brahmin whenever we like. Its name on the world map is, of course, Brahmin Tipping. Next, we arrive in the streets of a ruined town. The path to the west is blocked. The path to the east leads to the exit grid. However, we see a gap in these ruins that we can navigate through. On the other end, we see a crowd assembled outside an arena. Inside the arena is a bare-chested man and a Komodo dragon. "Hold still, you mongrel," he says. "Hang on a minute, you dozy bugger. Fair suck out of the sauce bottle. Struth, he's a strong bugger. Stone the bloody crows." After a moment,
That's right, blokes and chillers. Gather round. What I have here is your typical giant mutated Komodo dragon. My namesake, if you will. A real beautiful animal. Now, what I'm gonna do here is bloody dangerous, so I don't want any of you gallas to try this without supervision. Basically, I'm gonna annoy the living bejesus out of this here Komodo and see what he makes of that. Here I go.
oh no. Oh, we can see where this is going. With that, the Komodo Man begins to harass this Komodo dragon, and the crowd is perplexed. "What's this moron up to?" they say. "What the hell is this guy doing? What's he doing to that poor creature?" After a while, well, yeah. This one didn't age very well, did it? This is, of course, a reference to Steve Irwin, who ultimately died when a stingray pierced his heart.
Whew. Danger, danger, danger.
We can't get into this pen to loot the Komodo Man's body. The crowd seems nonplussed by what went on here. They don't move or say anything after this. The Komodo dragon just walks around, I guess pleased with himself. This ruin does continue off to the east, but there's nothing here, and we can't find any way into the pen. Now, can we kill the spectators? And we can kill the dragon. The spectators aren't carrying much, just some afterburner gum. But by killing the spectators, we, of course, lose a bunch of karma. However, there is one way to save the Komodo Man's life. If we're quick and we race on in and then attack the Komodo dragon before the Komodo Man has a chance to start his voice dialogue, we can kill him. This breaks the entire encounter. The Komodo Man doesn't say anything after this. We can't interact with him, and we can't interact with any of the other spectators. However, apparently we don't lose karma. I'm still guardian of the wastes here. So there we go. Good deed for the day. Komodo Man saved. Or poor Komodo dragon murdered, depending on your perspective. On the world map, this one is labeled the Komodo Man. Next, we find a crashed airplane in the middle of the desert. It's broken into several pieces. And even though it was nighttime when I shot this, if we look closely, we can barely make out some text scribbled on the side of the cockpit here. It's really hard to read, but the game files tell us that this plane's name is the Electro, and hanging out of the cockpit is a bleached human skeleton. This plane has been here for a very long time, and it's the name of the plane that helps us understand the reference. Amelia Earhart attempted to circumnavigate the globe in 1937, and she was flying a Lockheed Electra 10E, hence the name of this ship, the Electro. She disappeared during her second attempt to circumnavigate the globe. She was last seen leaving New Guinea. She was supposed to make it to Howland Island, but she never arrived. Looks like in the Fallout universe, a plane crashed over the Midwest. Sure enough, when we go back to the world map, the name of this encounter is Amelia. Next, we arrive on the other side of a ruined wall. As we round the other side of the wall, we come under fire from laser turrets. The turrets are protecting something in the middle of this brick square. This something is hostile towards us, so when we get close, we can attack. Lying in the middle of this square is a dead Brahmin. And on its body is... I don't know. It's not labeled in the game. Inspecting it in our inventory, it has no description. But it weighs 10 pounds. It just looks like a mass of bones and flesh. But if we put it over our armor slot... it's armor! And we turn into a Brahmin. This Brahmin armor turns us into a Brahmin. And we can walk around like one. But the cool thing about this armor is it works on every race. Super mutant ghouls, Deathclaws, even robots. However, it doesn't transform our character sprite into a Brahmin unless we're a human. The stats of the Brahmin armor are exactly the same as those of the Leather Armor Mark II. Because this is the only suit of armor that a humanoid robot can wear, it's really good for them, but the problem is that since it's supposed to transform us into a Brahmin, we can't actually fire our weapons while wearing it. And that's true even for characters who can wear the armor but don't transform into Brahmin. They still can't shoot their weapons. One might think that this would be useful for stealth, but no, enemies see right through the disguise and they'll attack us even if we are dressed like a Brahmin. This one is called Brahmin Armor on the world map. Next, we arrive just outside a large gate, and a woman is here waiting for us. Her name is Janet the Humanitarian.
Greetings, fellow humanitarian. I'm Janet Badall, foreperson for the Deathclaw Freedom Alliance. I am here for one purpose, to free poor captive Deathclaws so that they may be free to roam the wasteland as nature intended. If you love nature as much as I do, you'll help me release some of the wasteland's most majestic yet most misunderstood creatures. Immoral Deathclaw poaching can be stopped. We just have to work together. Let's go!
Oh, and she seems to think that we're on board with this. She races forward, and we see now that this fenced-off area was a large pen. Inside the pen are a number of Deathclaws. And this lady, she unlocks the pen and races inside.
Yes, my friends, you are free! Run! Run like the wind! Rejoice! It is God's will that... No! But I'm a friend!
The Deathclaws immediately attack Janet and become hostile towards us. We've got to defend ourselves. Well, I can imagine that finding this encounter pretty early in the game can be really difficult. Thankfully, this late in the game, we were able to take care of them, but our burst weapon damage accidentally killed Janet. Oh, no. She's not carrying anything on her body. Well, I wanted to see if there was a way to save Janet's life. So reloading a save, we can race by Janet for now. If we try to access the door, however, we find that it's locked. However, it looks like we can pick it. I simply didn't have high enough skill on any of my characters to do so. I couldn't find a way to shoot through the bars of this cell or lob a grenade over it. So what I did is I had Janet unlock the door, then made sure that my team got aggro while Janet ran to the other side of the cage. Then I just pointed all my guys with SMGs the other way so she wouldn't get clipped by friendly fire. And we did it! Deathclaw's dead, Janet survives. Sadly, we can't talk to Janet the Humanitarian after this. She's probably too stunned by what just happened. And apparently we don't lose any karma by killing the Deathclaws. This one is called the Deathclaw Liberation on the world map. Now in her opening dialogue, she told us her last name. She said it was Badall. Janet Badall? Well, that makes this reference plain. She's clearly a reference to Jane Goodall, the world-renowned English primatologist and expert on chimpanzees. Next, we arrive in an industrial ruin. There are broken machines to the west and big piles of metal and junk lying all about us. And walking around in this urban ruin is a Brahmin, and it's kind of bluish. He is not hostile, initially, and if we get close, he talks to us. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. Oh, really? Hovering our mouse over him, he's B-1000. Alright, well that makes this a Terminator 2 reference.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
Well, can we kill him? Yes, we can, and wow, there was something weird going on with this guy. He almost appeared to resurrect himself a couple of times during that fight. On his body is just an Uzi. I wanted to see if he really could come back from the dead, but my team just had too much firepower, so setting most of the team aside for now, I grabbed just one guy and opened fire. Yeah, so he comes back to life several times before finally dying. And this, of course, is another reference to Terminator 2. B-1000 here is referencing the robot T-1000 in Terminator 2, a robot that displayed a very similar self-repair mechanism. This industrial ruin is pretty big, but we don't find anything hidden here. So we can hop in the Hummer and head back to the world map. This encounter was called the B-1000. Next, we arrive in a crumbling urban ruin. Heading down an alleyway, we arrive at a basketball court. And here we find two civilians, one in green and one in purple, talking with each other. Hey, like, WTF's with him, man. He was so owned. We will rocksoar your punk ass. So, like, a player killed him and camped his body 5 times, man. That was cool. Check that poser, dude. Yo, 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 sup, dude? You see what I see? Damn muties drop crap loot. Stinkin' homosexual customs. Brotherhood beaches? Check that. Some beaches. These interesting chaps are named Fat Man and Leet Boy. Can we kill them? And you know we can. Neither Leet Boy or Fat Man have anything on their inventories. So, 2 things to unpack here. The first is that these guys are speaking in Leet speak. You know, before there were emojis and everyone you played online games with was sus. People who thought they were terribly clever with the internet would replace vowels with numbers, and letters that sounded like other letters with letters that sounded like other letters. This Leet speak was primarily a text-based form of primitive internet communication, and apparently it has survived into the post-apocalypse in a vocal form by Leet Boy and Fat Man. Leet Boy and Fat Man themselves are references to the bombs America dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Little Boy and Fat Man. This ruin is sprawling, but we don't find anything here. Heading back out to the world map, we see that this encounter was called the Leetists. Next, we arrive in a completely dark map. We see a few pools of glowing radioactive waste. And then, just to the south of us, we hear a voice. But it ain't me you gotta worry about now. After a moment, a shadow passes by our party, but then the shadow disappears off into the darkness. But soon we see it again. A man walking east. He appears to be following the glowing pools of radioactive waste. Don't step out of the light, he says. Well, okay. We walk from pool of light to pool of light until our crew detects enemies off to the north. We get attacked by a bunch of Deathclaws, and continuing east, we find even more. But where was that man? The one walking around telling us to stay in the light. Did he get killed by the Deathclaws? Continuing east, we bump into even more. following it all the way to the end, at last, we arrive back at the world map, and we see that this encounter was called Pitch Black. Now, I had no idea what happened to the guy that we met on this map. I wanted to try the encounter again. So reloading a save, we can try to find this guy. Sure enough, he appears in the light, and we can try to follow him from point of light to point of light. The problem is that when we get attacked by the Deathclaws, he races into the darkness to attack. Time to dust this mother effer, he says. Somehow he survived that. Don't step out of the light, he says again, walking back from the darkness that he stepped into. But then he finds more enemies to the south. He says, "You're one dead son of a beach to pick a fight with me," and he attacks more Deathclaws. But because he didn't stay in the light like he told us to do, he walked right in front of all of our burst weapons. I ran over into the darkness to see if I could find him, but couldn't find him anywhere. He no longer was appearing in these big blobs of light, and it was too dark to find his corpse. So resorting to the combat log, we can scroll through it until we find it. His death. Riddick dances to the rhythm of lead. So he did die, and it means that he likely died the last time we tried this as well. This confirms that this special encounter is a reference to the movie Pitch Black. The plot of the movie is that a convicted criminal named Riddick is being transported through space, and he crash lands with a bunch of other people on what they thought was an abandoned planet. The planet is bathed in perpetual sunlight because it has 3 suns. However, when they explore underground, they find a bunch of creatures living underground that are aggressive and kill some of the survivors. However, an eclipse happens, causing the surface of the planet to be bathed in darkness. This allows the creatures underground to come to the surface to hunt, and the survivors of the crash, including Riddick, have to survive. Riddick is unique in that his eyes have been modified, allowing him to see in the dark.
You're not afraid of the dark, are you?
So now we understand the context behind this special encounter, but we gotta figure out how to get through it without Riddick dying. The next time I again tried sticking with Riddick, but it was really difficult because he leaves the light at the first sign of an enemy. Of course he does, because he can actually see in the dark, but we can't. But inevitably we kill him. Next, I tried removing all of my burst weapons, but this ended up being suicidal. Not only did Riddick still run off into the darkness, but without my burst weapons, I wasn't doing enough damage fast enough to kill the Deathclaws, and several of my squad members died. So then I tried heading off into the darkness to clear the northern side of this map first, hoping that Riddick would stay on the path. After clearing the entire northern side, however, I examined the combat log to see that Riddick had already been killed. Next, I tried dividing my squad in half, sending 3 to the northern darkness and 3 to the southern darkness. I tried clearing these out simultaneously, but I found this to be very tricky. I ended up clearing a few waves, but because I only had 3 men at either side, it took longer to tear them down. This allowed Riddick to advance ahead of us, aggroing other Deathclaws on the eastern side of the map before we had finished clearing the ones on the western side, and of course, leading to his death. But by this time, I had memorized where all of the Deathclaw spawns were, and when they were triggered. So knowing where they were, I just brought my squad to each one as fast as I could, running to spawn point 1. We take him out fast, then running to spawn point 2. We take him out fast. Spawn point 3 meets us in the glow. And we see Riddick still behind us. Moving north, we can go to spawn point 4. See that Riddick was running up to help us just as we killed the last Deathclaw. Then, with all of the Deathclaws dead, we can head to the eastern side of the map and wait for Riddick. Sure enough, he's still alive, and he makes it to the exit grid, which is in the dark on the eastern side of the map, and there he stands. I can see in the dark, he says. We can move our squad into the exit grid to join him. You're not afraid of the dark, are you? And with that, we arrive back on the world map. Now, I was told that if he survives, he joins our party. It just so happened that this special encounter spawned close to Bunker Delta. So I went to Bunker Delta to see if I could find him in the recruits pool, but he wasn't there. I thought, well, great, maybe I did something wrong. And so I looked it up. Apparently, Riddick can join your party as a squad mate if he survives, but he's scripted to only appear in the recruits pool at Bunker Gamma. So I went to the wrong bunker. Heading to Bunker Gamma, we can examine the recruits pool, but he's not there. And I think the issue was that I went to Bunker Delta first, and that kind of messed up his listing in the recruits pool. So to fix this, I went all the way back to the pitch black encounter. By now the Deathclaws are all dead, we don't have to fight them again. We spawn on the western end, and we can walk all the way to the eastern end. We find him still standing here in the exit grid. So he's still alive, though it did say he was severely wounded. I wanted to dot my I's and cross my T's, so I used a paramedic's bag to heal him up. Then heading to the exit grid, we can skip Bunker Delta and go straight to Bunker Gamma. Then checking the recruits pool at last, we find Riddick. Riddick is a criminal on the run from all sorts of people and authorities, but exactly who, he refuses to mention. While he is happy to fight other humans, he prefers to try out his exceptional night vision on the lethal critters of the wasteland. Riddick has unarmed melee weapons and sneak tagged. It looks like he's a bit of a mid-game squad member. His melee is low, but his unarmed and sneak are pretty decent. His special stats are okay. Good strength, perception, and endurance, and pretty good agility. And he has quite a few traits and perks. Heavy-handed, night person, of course. Then bonus hand-to-hand damage, night vision, of course, silent running, survivalist, silent death, and adrenaline rush. That's a whole lot of perks. Well, since I've already completed the game and I want to have at least one chance to run with these new companions, we'll swap out Dylan, as much as I love Dylan, and replace him with Riddick. Then heading to the Hummer, we can return to the world map. Next, we stumble upon a post-apocalyptic forest grove with a bunch of Brahmin standing around a table. If we race forward too quickly, we disturb the scene. So instead, we can creep closer with a stealthed character, in this case Riddick, to spy on them and see what they're talking about. Ante up, shuffle the deck. Straight, we have a winner! 5-card stud. You win or out. Read 'em and weep. I fold. Shuffle the deck. Nobody's that lucky. Wild cards are one-eyed jacks. Suicide King. Too rich for my blood. Hit me. What rules we playing with again? I'll call that bluff. Aces and eights. Dead man's hand. Cut the deck already. Keep your hooves above the table. But just like last time, if we get too close, and if they see through our stealth, they hightail it out of there. Crap! Moo! Moo! They shout. Whoa, it's a bust. Nice playing with you, fellas. Bessie's gonna kill me. They run off, but then appear to get confused, and they sort of run back and forth here. Examining the poker table, we find over 29,000 ring pulls. All right. But then, of course, we have to answer the question of the day. Can we kill them? You know we can. We don't find anything on their bodies, but killing them, we do lose karma. We drop all the way down to Shield of Hope. Heading back out to the world map, we see that this was called Brahmin Poker. This is likely a reference to the painting Dogs Playing Poker by Cassius Marcellus Coleridge from 1894. This painting, incidentally, was referenced again in the Fallout universe during the Old World Blues DLC for Fallout New Vegas, during the Cyber Dogs Playing Poker Wild Wasteland event in the X8 Research Center. I covered it in my video on X8 that you can watch here. Then, we stumble upon a rocky section of the wasteland with bubbling pools of radioactive waste. Heading into the middle of all of these rocks, we don't see anything at first. But then... what was that? Something briefly appeared here for a minute. Heading south, we see it again. When I get back to the cage, that Burke is gonna get it. It's a talking floating skull. And his name is Morte. He disappears around and behind these rocks, making it difficult to read his dialogue. But by watching him, we can observe his travel path. Then, stationing somebody at each point along his travel path, we can make sure that he's always visible so that we can read his flavor dialogue. "This is not my century," says Morte. "A duck, a prime, and a Burke walk into a bar. By the powers, my feet are killing me," says the floating skull with no feet. "Maybe I can do some push-ups for a bit," says the floating skull with no arms. We can't interact with him. He doesn't have anything to say to us, but we can kill him. Doesn't take much to kill him. Examining his body, we don't find anything on it, and we don't appear to lose any karma by killing him. Exploring the rest of this map, we don't find anything. Morte here is a reference to the game Planescape Torment, made by Black Isle Studios, the company that made Fallout and Fallout 2 before making Planescape Torment in 1999. Morte was supposed to have a larger interaction with us during this special encounter. We were supposed to be able to talk with him, but for some reason it was cut, and we can't interact with him. He would have said, "Whoa, 1 minute I'm banging around the cage, the next I'm in the middle of some sand pile with delusions of being a desert. Must have been that shortcut through the brothel window that dumped me here. Great. Another bunch of sand-dwelling primes. Look, I'm a Oh, pike it. Any of you primes know of any portals around here? No? Just my luck. First I get saddled with some Burke with a brain box like a sack of stones whose sole vocabulary is, 'Can I ask you some questions?' And before I can lose him, he ditches me. Great. Well, we'll leave Morte here to find a portal back to his own reality, and we'll move on to ours. And that's all of the special encounters in Fallout Tactics. Now, there are more special encounter spawn points on the map than there are special encounters to fill them. Once we exhaust and place all of the special encounters on the map, if we happen to stumble upon one of these special encounter spawn points, the game crashes. Failed to open mission file Z is the error message. So that's one way to know that we have well and truly discovered them all. With that, we've completed every mission in Fallout Tactics, spoken to every character, unlocked every special encounter, examined every item and weapon. Now that it's over, what are your thoughts on Fallout Tactics? Do you think the game deserves the reputation that it has? Or do you think it has a bit more merit, and perhaps it should have a greater place in the pantheon of great Fallout games? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I publish new Fallout content each and every week on my channel, so if you don't want to miss my next episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. If you have already, but you still feel like you're missing out on YouTube notifications, consider following me on Twitter at Oxhorn. I update Twitter manually with every new piece of content that I publish. I have 2 new shirts in the shop. Mines, mines, mines! And
who wants a cookie?
About time, right? Well, better late than never. My shirt shop has completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. You can find them on other products as well, like mugs, stickers, pillows, and smartphone cases. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more brand new videos.